Hey guys, today we are talking about the Sony FE50mm f1.8 lens, the cheapest full-frame lens that Sony makes for E-mount, to find out if it's a good option for video work. Will this be a bigger bargain than buying Bitcoin back when it was less than $1, or a cheap disaster like my low-budget remake of Edward Scissorhands?
Needs more scissors.
Just before we start, you'll find timestamps for everything we're going to cover, along with links to relevant products and videos down in the description. And if you enjoy this video, then like, subscribe, and let me know any questions or thoughts down in the comments. Thank you. And let's start off by covering basic features. The lens has a list price of £299, but it is available brand new for much less. I got mine for just over half that, so in reality you're more likely to find it for closer to £160. For that money, you get an aperture range from f1.8 at the widest to f22 at the narrowest, along with a mid-range focal length of 50mm in full frame mode, or 75mm with the 1.5 times crop when using APS-C crop mode or mounting the lens to a crop body camera. Up front you get a single manual focus ring, a 49mm filter thread, and glass that is a little recessed from the lens barrel, completing the minimal design. So, what field of view can we capture with it? The standard 50mm look is a popular mid-shot and often recommended as the best beginner focal length given its versatility. My testing is broadly in line with those norms. Indeed, the 50mm, just like 50 Cent, is well suited to urban shooting and close-up shooting scenarios, but it can also do much more, and thankfully, unlike 50 Cent, has never tried to take me to any kind of candy shop. It will do a decent job at landscapes, capturing less scenery than some of the wide lenses we've tested in the past, but drawing stronger attention to what you do choose to frame. You can increase that emphasis on specific subjects by switching to APS-C crop mode, where the 75mm equivalent shot gives a significantly tighter and more targeted view. You can also get some moderate macro shots, with the 50mm view working well and the 75mm working even better for this, while the lens in general gives nicely balanced and composed close and mid shots. There is no in-lens stabilisation here, so any moving shots are reliant on in-body steady shot, or if you have a newer body like the A7C, Catalyst Brow's gyro stabilisation can work very nicely. Guides to Catalyst in the description. The lightness of the lens also means it can work on smaller and less expensive gimbals. I tried it using my A7C on a Zhiyun Crane M2 and got decent results. Perhaps you're thinking, can I vlog with this lens? Now, I define vlogging as when you're walking around with your camera at around arm's length. For that situation, 50mm is too tight of a focal length to vlog with, unless shots that are composed with all face and zero background is your desired look. And with a dumpster fire of a face like this one, it sure as hell is not mine. I suppose you could still try to vlog, maybe with a grip extension, but it's a bit like using a pine cone as an adult toy. You could do it, but I really can't recommend it. However, if you define vlogging as including studio or tripod shots with a fixed camera position, then this lens is actually great. I really enjoy the 50mm for creating these beautiful video portraits which look really complementary when standing at around 1 to 3 meters away from the camera. A big reason these shots look so appealing to me is the fantastic subject separation and the beautiful blurry background bokeh, which is what we're going to discuss next. In fact, the biggest selling point of this lens for me is the fact it's a full-frame f1.8 aperture for an extremely low comparative price. But that would be useless if the bokeh we achieve doesn't actually look nice. Thankfully, this lens delivers more strongly than an Uber Eats driver with a major steroid problem. Bokeh is really attractive, providing seamless transitions between the in and out of focus areas and super smooth background blur, akin to a watercolor painting. The 50mm focal length gives a nice amount of compression to your background too, which captivatingly complements and emphasizes that bountiful bokeh blur. There is excellent subject separation, and the 7-bladed circular aperture provides nice round bokeh balls. These aren't perfectly circular, but are largely artifact-free and visually clean. So in videography, as in life, I would say that clean balls are more important than perfectly round ones. The bokeh on close-up shots is especially nice and gets more and more lush until you reach the minimum focal distance of around 35 centimeters, which brings us onto focus more generally, and autofocus is a bit unusual with this lens. Despite being a prime lens, the barrel actually zooms in and out slightly depending on focal distance. Firstly, this contributes to noticeable focus breathing, where the field of view and size of objects can change between the minimum and maximum focal distance. It also contributes to autofocus, which works well in simple situations and can do a good job of subject tracking, but which has more trouble and more lapses than other lenses that I've tested. Whether it is backlighting creating an extra challenge, the focus struggling with subjects at a closer distance, or the occasional strange delay in focusing, there are definitely some oddities here. The motorized movement of the lens barrel also creates noise, which, while not awful, might get picked up by more sensitive mics nearer to the camera, or may simply be a bit distracting. Not something that should be a deal breaker for most people, but definitely worth being aware of. Touch tracking rack focus works fairly well, but again has slightly more trouble than the average of the lenses that I've tested. Pay a bit more attention as you shoot and you will still be able to get really nice results though. Overall, autofocus here is a bit like my fashion choices. Fine in common situations and generally effective, but with the risk of occasional errors and bizarre misjudgments. The 50mm autofocus does fall down more easily than other lenses I've tested, and this is one place where you do notice that cheaper price tag. Manual focus is more straightforward. The lens still protrudes or retracts as focal distance changes, but now there's no motor noise, and the action is as smooth as you are manipulating the focus ring. The focus ring itself is a good size and nicely tactile. It's not a perfectly linear focus response, but it does have a smooth action and a reasonable travel distance from furthest to closest focus, meaning that with a bit of effort you can achieve really nice cinematic focus pulls. It does fall behind best-in-class experiences like the Sony 20mm f1.8G, but for a fraction of the price, that is okay. And the experience here is better than some of the more expensive mid-range lenses I've tested. But how does the design and build quality compare to other lenses? Well, the answer is largely positive. Despite the discount price and lightweight, the lens still feels solid with metal and plastic construction that feels good quality and reliable. That lightness is advantageous too. At a slim 186 grams and just 6 centimeters in length, you can get great portability. Plus, as we mentioned earlier, the lower weight means more headroom when using the lens with gimbals. We already touched on the retracting barrel, focus ring, and recessed glass, which make up the other notable elements of lens design. Like an Apple device, it's a simple, compact, and minimal design, which I think works well. And nowadays, you can't play Fortnite on either. But if we are making comparisons to Apple devices, then one area this lens should destroy something like an iPhone or an iPad is in low light video. So, how does it do? The answer is very well. The 50mm has an advantage in darker settings thanks to that very wide f1.8 aperture. In my testing, this translated into me being able to keep my ISO settings significantly lower than usual when shooting in dark conditions with a 1/50 shutter. That helps to keep image noise low while retaining more detail, clarity, and color information. As well-known Kazakh journalist Borat Sagdiyev might say, very nice. The great quality bokeh and prominent bokeh balls are particularly noticeable in lower light, leading to some really striking visuals and appealing results. However, while it works well for the most part, you can find autofocus struggling a bit in lower light, both with tracking subjects and with making sensible focus decisions. But I think that is more about the wider oddities of the autofocus system that we discussed earlier, rather than something unique to a low light setting. Overall, is this a good lens for low light video? Absolutely, and for the price, I think you will probably struggle to find anything else which can give you comparable performance. And since we're talking about overalls, let's discuss overall conclusions. This is not a perfect lens, but there is no such thing. However, it does offer some interesting and enticing trade-offs, that could make it great for some people. On the plus side, we get great quality bokeh and low light performance thanks to that big f1.8 aperture. And considering this is full frame glass, we get that at a really compelling low price. We get a nicely balanced field of view that works well for a number of different types of shot and is especially attractive for talking head or more portrait-like shots. The design is simple but effective while also conveniently light and compact, making it great for portability. But the downsides include a sometimes temperamental autofocus system coupled with motor noise and significant focus breathing, plus a lack of any built-in stabilisation. Overall, it's a nice utility lens, a versatile wide aperture prime for your lineup, or a nice starter cinematic lens for a comparatively low cost. I'll be keeping mine and using it for the foreseeable future. In fact, you'll probably see much more of it in these talking head studio segments in future videos. Which brings us to the end for today. A massive thank you for watching, especially making it all the way to the end of the video. And if you do want to see those future videos we mentioned, then be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know any questions or thoughts down in the comments. But most importantly, until next time, take it easy. Finally, enough scissors. Now, time for a cinematic masterpiece. Hello, I'm Edward Scissorhands.